Hey, it's Ramsey, Dewey, and Kyle Ruzewski. We're over here at Animal MMA in Shanghai, China. Animal MMA is Kyle's gym. Come check it out if you're in town. It's an awesome place to train.
Thank you.
And today we're going to talk about some differences between BJJ for the sport of BJJ and BJJ for the sport of MMA, because they're two different things. So we both do MMA, we both do BJJ, and I wrote down a list of stuff, so let's go through this, and Kyle, you chime in at any moment here.
For sure, I love to.
So the first thing I wrote down on my list of differences was a greater sense of urgency in the sport of MMA. And one of the obvious reasons is there's strikes, so if you're stuck in a bad position, you got to improve more quickly. But there's also the fact that there's less time to work on the ground in an MMA fight. Like if you look at statistics.
Yeah, it's the old adage, you know, everyone's a black belt till you punch in the face.
Yeah.
And that is holding true, especially for the time frames. Black belts can relax, can chill out, can like plan their next few moves in BJJ. In MMA, there is no time for that when you're getting punched. And I shouldn't say that's a generality. Like, there are more than a few examples of people who are able to sit there inside a guard, not have to worry about stuff.
Yeah.
You know, we talked about Randy Couture, Tito Ortiz earlier, but still, just getting punched in the face is that's an ingrained sense of urgency. If you don't have that, you should not be fighting.
It's a big deal, man. It's a bigger deal than you might realize. Even light strikes.
Yeah.
Like a drill that I think every MMA coach does with their students is work in basic positions, but with light contact strikes, you know, otherwise you're going to inflict a lot of damage. But one thing new students realize right away is those light contact strikes, even though they're not doing a lot of damage, they create this huge sense of urgency that isn't necessarily, it's not there in pure jiu-jitsu.
Absolutely. I think everybody, or people who are human beings, we are, Ramsey's human. So anybody, no matter what, if you're just sitting there getting tapped, like you said, even if it's a small strike, this on your face is not anything anyone's used to ever. Nobody is born into some kind of like face slapping conditioning program. It doesn't happen. So, I mean, literally, like putting that adage into literal terms, I have rolled with many black belts, and they'll, admittedly, they'll tap me out, you know, whatever. Okay, cool, let's put some gloves on. The moment we put gloves on and I start introducing this, all of a sudden that armbar that got me 4 times doesn't happen anymore. Yeah. All of a sudden that control of the cuff, you know, the collar is there, but I'm pushing my elbow into your throat now because I can. So it's very different, like you said, and you're absolutely 1,000% correct on this. It's just practicing positions, armbars, submissions, any kind is okay. But the moment you start getting punched in the face, that practice is different.
Yeah, every rule change, however minor, however slight, creates a huge dynamic change in the sport. I mean, look at, say, Olympic-style Taekwondo versus Kyokushin Karate. There are some minor differences in the rule set, but major differences in how the sports actually play out. So another thing with the sense of urgency is that it takes an average of about 2 minutes in an MMA fight to get the fight to the ground, if that's where they wanted to go. About 2 minutes to get that first takedown. And it's very rare to get to the ground fresh. Like, you're probably going to take damage.
Yeah.
You're probably going to be quite fatigued once you get there. Whereas in a jiu-jitsu match, you know, you can just pull guard and roll around immediately fresh as soon as you get there. So it's kind of a luxury that doesn't exist in the sport of MMA.
I think we spoke about this too before in BJJ tournaments, how most black belt matches are really stagnant for a very long time because they're worried about consequences for their actions. Like if I grab here, you might grab that in my back, you know, whatever. There's a lot more planning. So that being said, high-level jiu-jitsu guys who do MMA, if they are aware of this and are cognizant of the striking that could potentially be harming them, that planning takes a lot longer as well. It's all relative. So that time that you need for all that planning is dramatically shortened because somebody is punching you in the mouth.
Yeah. Now, obviously, every technique in the gi, we have to throw that out for MMA, and so a lot of people have this mindset, oh, well, I'll just do no gi and then I'll be ready for MMA, but I find there are still many, many differences between no gi jiu-jitsu and MMA. Now, one thing we were talking about a little bit before this was going for arm bars from mount. Like when I said, what's something that's kind of, great for jiu-jitsu, but just kind of stupid for MMA? And that's the first thing you brought up. Why is that?
Well, mainly if you don't have a guaranteed submission, if it's not 100% on the armbar, you are going from a dominant spot for striking purposes to a dominant spot for the other guy. Like if I'm on top of you, hell yeah, let's have a fist fight. If I'm underneath you, I don't want to start boxing. And that's what's going to happen. If you're on top of somebody and you're punching them, you go for the armbar, you lose your position. To finish the armbar, you have to be on your back. So I cannot think of a worse position to start a boxing match from than this.
Yeah.
Oh no, I can't. That's the only worst one. But I need to be on my feet. If I'm a standing fighter, I need to be standing. So the game has to change with that. And to be in a dominant spot and give it up for a submission you may or may not get just seems silly to me.
Yeah. I remember Rich Franklin spoke about this in an interview. He was mounted, he was in trouble, didn't really see a way out, so he stuck his arm up to encourage the guy to try for the arm bar, and during that transition, he had the space to get out.
Yep.
So, yeah, it's a game of percentages, really. Let's see here. Oh man, this is a big thing. I've done a bunch of jiu-jitsu tournaments where I got penalty points for stalling from the top. And it's upsetting. I understand that's the rule set of the sport of IBJJF jiu-jitsu or whatever. But here's the situation. The guy pulls guard, I'm on top, he's working for a sweep, I'm defending the sweep, he's working for a submission, I'm defending the submission. We have grips on this uniform, whatever, so there's not a lot of motion, right? And if I move a certain way, he's going to get the sweep. If I move another way, he's going to get the submission. And so there's not a lot of action. This goes on for several minutes. What does the referee do? Penalty point. For who? The guy on top. And in MMA, this makes zero sense at all. Think about it for a minute. You're the guy on top in an MMA fight, right? And you're working to finish the fight. You're striking, you're doing some damage. The guy on the bottom is trying to sweep you. You're balancing so he can't. He's trying to submit you. You're centering so he can't. What are the judges thinking in that situation?
And this is that weird, rub, I guess, between entertainment and sport. Sport, I tell all my students, go and be safe. Be safe. As a fan, people are drooling for knockouts. People are drooling for action. So even, MMA fights, the ref's like, oh, hurry up. You might be working your ass off, but it doesn't look aesthetically like a lot is happening. So then you get encouraged to hurry, or you get a stalling point, which is ridiculous. But I don't, as you just alluded to, I don't see how there could be anything stalling in a fight. Like, it's just, that's not stalling, that's protection.
Yeah.
That's a big difference. It's a big difference. Stalling, in BJJ, if I'm sitting here like this and I'm just grabbing you and pulling you in,
yeah,
and I'm not doing anything, stalling, but I'm on the bottom. If I'm the guy on the top who has his gi controlled, and the guy has my waist like in a manner where I can't move at all, I'm not stalling, I'm trying to move. I just physically can't right now.
Yeah, exactly.
And for me to break through this, I would have to physically give you something that would put me in a bad position. So in order to stop stalling, I'm giving up everything I just got for it. I got the takedown, I got you in the spot, ref says I'm stalling, okay, so I'll move this way. Oh great, where's the guy's sweep?
Yeah.
So it's really counterproductive. I don't feel like that. Really, in any martial arts, if you're on top, you're not. I don't see how you're stalling. If anything, you're being nice to the guy on the bottom. In MMA, especially, think about if you got called for stalling from the mounts.
Yeah.
That's because you're not hurting somebody right there. That's all that's happening.
That would be an extreme case.
Yeah, but I'm just. That's how I do it.
That's one of the difference, and this is a huge one, is the stand-up. Because if there is legitimate stalling in MMA, if they're just hugging each other and nothing is happening, again, the referee will give them a warning and say, make something happen or I'll break it up, right? At least they usually do. But if that happens, they will stand them back up.
Yeah.
This will never happen in a jiu-jitsu match.
I don't understand that. That makes no sense to me. Even actually, we sent the guy, I don't want to name any company names, but we sent the guy to fight a couple weeks ago. He was actually in a position, and I'm not exaggerating this at all, butt against the cage, just blocking knees. He was just blocking me, and this was over a minute duration.
Yeah.
The referee separates them and takes a point away. I thought about this, like how, if you have to separate two guys hitting each other because one is doing nothing, that fight's over.
That's a TKO.
That fight's done. That fight is done. Instead, they break away. They raise the guy's hand. It's like 1 point away. It's like,
it's like some
just call the fight at this point. I mean, if he's at this stage where he has to defensively stall because he can't attack, the fight is done. What is the point of doing any kind of a penalty? It's just prolonging.
That's weird, man. That ref obviously got confused that it's not pre-1993 with the, the boxing. What was that rule? The standing 8 count.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Where one fighter is basically being TKO'd and the referee steps in, gives him a little break to assess the situation.
Yeah. Well, you're not dead yet, so let's keep going. No, it's the same thing, and actually, I mentioned this because I found out later that the referee is a former BJJ. So he started from a grappling background. So maybe this is like a sport-wide thing. I don't know, but it's just that there has to be more taken into account than just the action or what the fans want to see, in my opinion. Because stalling can just be you surviving.
Yes. Yeah, you're never going to win on points from the bottom in a MMA fight.
No.
You can win from the bottom via submission, absolutely. You can inflict damage with strikes and elbows and things like that. There are lots of ways fighting from the bottom can factor in, but you're not going to win on points from the bottom.
That's correct.
Like if you spend 5 minutes on your back, you're probably losing that fight.
Which is really weird because, I mean, even there's this I had personal experience in. My CompuBox numbers for my striking are most of my strikes from my back. When I fought in Shin Wooman, actually, that season 2018, in one fight I had most significant strikes for the whole season, and I spent 4 minutes of the third round on my back in the guard, going for a Kimura, but the guy was blocking, so I just started elbowing the knee,
Yeah.
And many places that would have been considered stalling, I feel like, for the guy in the guard. But because I was attacking him, they let it go. And I thought that was really weird. Like I watch this video still sometimes, and I don't know, I'm just confused. Like he is trying to defend himself, but because it's exactly the exact thing I'm talking about today. He's trying to not get beat. If he changes his stalling tactics, like his arm, I was yanking out a Kimura, and he blocks it. So you get the Kimura in, and he just blocked it by stepping over here.
Okay.
So I kept my overarm in, and then my underarm, I just started extending and elbowing his leg as much as I could over 3 minutes. And if he moves this at all to defend, like if he moves his leg inside or whatever, boom,
you got
his fight's done, So it's like, is that guy stalling or is he protecting? Me on the bottom, I don't know. I'm trying to finish the fight as hard as I can.
Exactly.
But I don't think about it until you bring stuff up like this. And now it's really bugging me. That does bug me now.
Yeah, I know, man. I've judged a bunch of MMA fights, and different organizations use different criteria, but generally it's much more subjective than IBJJF Jiu-Jitsu.
Yeah.
I mean, IBJJF Jiu-Jitsu, it's got like an 80-page rule book where every little detail is cataloged. If this happens, then this is the score. If this happens, that's the score. Whereas MMA, it's like, again, it's much more subjective.
Well, I think it's easier to quantify damage in an MMA fight than a jiu-jitsu fight. So let's say somebody throws up 10 arm bars, doesn't hit a single one of them.
Yeah.
That guy on the top is fine. Whereas in MMA, that guy's trying to do 10 arm bars, but you're also getting hit and elbowed on the way. Like, how did you even get in that position for the arm bar to begin with? So that has to be all factored in, whereas BJJ competitions, they can't be because it doesn't exist.
Exactly. Which is why those pesky advantage points exist, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Not a big fan of advantage points.
I hate position points. It's like the longer you can sit there.
Yeah.
That is stalling. In my opinion, and people are going to hate me for this, but in my opinion, position points are stalling. That is stalling. If you're just holding somebody's back and you're not trying to move for submission, that's kind of stalling. And it's because you're worried about getting swept or getting a position lost. And
yeah, and this is one of those things I wrote on my list, is that the positional points in jiu-jitsu, like the positions you score from, knee mount, full mount, back mount, in many ways, are actually more important in MMA than they are for jiu-jitsu. For example, knee mount. How many viable submissions and attacks are available from knee mount in sport jiu-jitsu? How often do we see matches end from knee mount?
No.
Not too often. Okay? But MMA, what's that for? I mean, if you can hold someone in knee mount for 3 or 4 seconds,
that's a lot of damage.
you can land enough significant strikes to get a TKO, to get the referee to step in there and stop it.
I also think, though, the cage has to come in. Like, jiu-jitsu, open sport mat kind of format. You know, if you go to the edges, they reset you maybe.
Yes.
If you go to the edge here, you're just stuck. You're stuck. You're just getting hit. Maybe your head's bouncing off the fence now.
Yeah.
Completely different. It's
massive. Here, let's go to the cage for a second here.
Please knee on belly me, good sir.
But one thing I'll always do when I get like a new guy with some jiu-jitsu experience in the gym trying MMA for the first time is push him up against a barrier, up against the fence or something like that. And take the guard, for example. Let's say I'm an experienced jiu-jitsu fighter. I'm right here. I'm comfortable right here. But what if Kyle starts pressing my back up against here? Suddenly, whoa. I've never trained in this situation before if all I've done is sport jiu-jitsu. And I might think, oh, okay, well, yeah, this can be, it's like being neck cranked, essentially.
And this is happening the whole time.
Yes, and you're getting hammered. You're like, what's going on here? Right? So again, it's like going from 2D chess to 3D chess.
That's a great way to put it. That is a great way to put that. I hate 3D chess. I'm terrible at it.
Yes, the urgency of getting up. Right? Get-ups are such a big part of MMA, and it's something that doesn't really exist. I mean, you can do it in jiu-jitsu, but why? If this is a sport jiu-jitsu match, we start on the feet. Let's say I'm a guard puller, and I'm like, I don't want to lose 2 points because this guy knows how to wrestle, so I'm just going to pull guard. Okay, there, no points lost. And I'm going to stay here and play off my back and sit on my butt for as long as I can. In fact, yeah, but let's say this is an MMA fight, and the only reason I'm going to end up in that position is if Kyle puts me in that position, right? If I come down here...
You start on me like this is how I yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Now that's another big thing between Nogi Jiu-Jitsu and MMA is this position, the sitting up guard position. Right? This can be a very valuable, strong position in jiu-jitsu, right? Maybe he's standing or maybe he's kneeling or whatever it is, and I'm right here. This is okay in jiu-jitsu. A lot of great grapplers do this, right? But again, in sport MMA, I brought my head closer to his fists, right? Under unified rules, he can't knee or kick me in the head from here, but he can certainly punch me. And so it's in my best interest to change the way I play guard and get my feet in between him and me.
We actually have different, like, if this was my Nogi BJJ class, we have a game or a drill. We sit here, we start like this, slap, bump. I'm trying to pass here, get the side control. Now in MMA class, it's different. I'm trying to touch your head instead. I'm not just trying to get here because, so what?
Yeah.
So it's a big deal. That guy can still kick me, he can still punch me. Like, from here, BJJ class, you can sweep me by stepping here. You can grab my leg, cool, pull guard, half guard, whatever. MMA class, I put my head here. Heck, it hit me. There's so many things. I mean, you're capoeira stand-up kicks that you do quite frequently. Everything is just, all that stuff is all of a sudden a threat to me. Whereas BJJ, I'll sit here, like, I'll tickle your foot, I'll reach in, I'll tell you a secret, something stupid just to make you move. MMA, I'm back here.
Yes.
Jiu-Jitsu, I'm up here messing around.
Yeah, this posture is such a big thing.
Yeah, totally different.
It's huge. Let's go over that again. Again, in sport jiu-jitsu, right? If I want to control this foot, it's okay if I bring my head down here.
I would deal here.
It's okay if he sits up here, right? But again, that's two big problems. In MMA,
I'm
far away from his feet. And he wants to keep his head as far away from my hands.
Absolutely.
Right? Those up kicks happen, right? And also...
You striking me.
Yeah, him, those bolo punches, man. Bolo punches kind of fell out of favor in boxing some time ago. I don't see a ton of people using them anymore, but if somebody tries to sit up in the guard, there you go. I mean, the urgency of a get-up, I wanted to talk about that a little bit. So, again, maybe we're in closed guard, Okay? And in sport jiu-jitsu, this is okay. This might be where I want to be. Of course, I'll try to sweep and submit and all that. In an MMA fight, this is kind of a beatdown position. You might be a great guard player. Kyle is a great guard player. If you don't know this guy, he's a great guard player for the sport of MMA. He's submitted tons of people off his back. But even so,
I will say thank you for that, but there's a big reason. That reason is why you're prettier than me right now. That, like, there's from this position.
Close up.
Yeah, all my scars, man, happen from here, pretty much.
He's got some gnarly scars in his face, man. But yeah, as far as I'm concerned, if I'm on my back here, my number one priority is get off that back, get back up here, and then work to be the guy on top.
Absolutely.
Right? Now, I'm not saying don't play guard for MMA. You know, give it a try. Right? Give it a little bit of time. Try to sweep him. Try to submit it. If you can't, get up. There's a certain list of priorities that I have in the guard. Number one, stand up. Right? Then after that, if you can't stand up, you might create an opening to sweep. An opening to sweep might create an opening for submission, and of course you're striking the whole time as well. But that's my order of priorities. How about you?
Well, again, I'm a bit uglier in mine, and I'm not as well planned and thought out with my attacks as you are. So as we were saying before, if I get stuck in guard, and it does happen, I like to use the rules to my advantage, where I'll bury my head away from him. So like the only thing I have to worry about is this small little thing right here on this part of my head. Now I can still sit here and kind of just like little taps. You know, it's not going to do any damage really, but it might make you move, maybe get you mad.
It's going to get a reaction for sure.
But in my opinion, like, this is me stalling. This is something I do when I'm tired. Or I just don't have an answer. Maybe this dude is freaking cuffing me and giving me elbows. Maybe I'm just going to bury my face.
Yeah.
And just try to get him to do something different than what's going on, because I'm not having a good time.
Yeah, just out of boredom from here, I might think, okay, I'm going to open up and get off to the angle, and now...
And then that's where I'm waiting, I'm waiting for a sweep or any kind of like a different window I can get. But that's, as you mentioned, their priorities of desire. I don't know, I think safety first. So it's just like, in my head, my dumb head, if I get card, I'm okay. But then I get punched, I'm like, oh shit, I gotta get out there.
But that's the beauty of striking. Obviously, it's to do damage, but it's got this profound psychological effect on people to change position.
Yeah.
That you don't have that option in sport jiu-jitsu. Like if he's got his guard in there, a little thing I like to do a lot is just take this elbow and slap, just strike there. Not even hard. Like, I know it's not like the white belt grind the thigh with the elbow. It's strike the elbow, like the same part where you would throw a leg kick. And I find it's lower risk because, again, we go from this bicep tie up to strike down there, or maybe throw something over the middle. My objective here isn't to beat up his leg. It's not to give him a bloody nose. It's to get him to open up this guard and try something. And now, once that's open, now we can start working to pass. So these little strikes can motivate the other guy to move.
Yeah, I preach to everybody elbows in, because even if it's these little tiny palm strings, as you said, just it's okay for 3 seconds, but 10 seconds, it's not. You want to move.
If you annoy a guy enough, he will react.
Yeah, and it's not even the pain of it, but I believe it is fighter ego. It's literally like anytime you're sparring, somebody hits you, either you touch it or you think about touching them in the same spot. Almost immediately, like everybody has the same kind of programming, I think.
Yeah.
If you fight, you have an ego and you want to protect it a little bit.
Yes. One of the other big differences for grappling for MMA, jiu-jitsu for MMA, is that you have to know how to wrestle. Like, it's not optional. In jiu-jitsu, you can become a world champion without knowing a single takedown. You can become a world champion without understanding all of these super important fundamental transitions of wrestling. Like, you can become a world champion without knowing what a duck under is, for example. But to become a great MMA fighter, you absolutely have to know how to wrestle and know how to combine your jiu-jitsu with wrestling.
It's a control factor. It's instead of constantly working for submissions or looking for an avenue for offense, there has to be control. It's position over submission. In MMA, I mean, this probably was true in jiu-jitsu, I'm sure too, but just where you are as opposed to what you're trying to do is more important. I mean, example, if Ramsey's on the bottom, Ramsey's got that amazing armbar, you know, he just throws it. But my wrestler senses, oh, no, forget this guy, I'm just going to pin him down. Now, this is not a jiu-jitsu move. This is just wrestling control. But because I'm smashing his legs into his face, he cannot finish the armbar.
Yeah.
And that being said, wrestlers are dicks. Like, by nature, I don't say where we're from in America, wrestlers for the most part are dicks. And when I'm doing jiu-jitsu, I'm nice, but if we're doing MMA and wrestling, my head is under his chin. Like, anytime I'm on top, I'm just like using my head to push anything I can. And that's just all wrestling mentality. That's just being a dick.
If you haven't shared the mat with a wrestler and you don't understand the type of pressure that they put on you with the head, do yourself a favor and, put yourself in those situations.
It's awful. It's awful.
It is awful, but it's a type of pressure you have to get used to if you want to be a cage fighter.
I mean, like you said before, just being here, great. I'm great at jiu-jitsu. Here, my life sucks. It's just having this inability to move your head where you want to, and then getting hit with it. Okay, I can armbar. Nope, can't move my hips like this.
Yeah, just elevating somebody's head off the ground without having to use your hand. It's like getting an extra free hand.
Yeah.
By pinning the guy up against the cage like that.
We say like wrestling is your head is your third hand in wrestling.
Yeah.
And it's so true. It's beyond true. I mean, you can hold somebody's arm down to make sure you're not getting punched. Put your head in their other armpit so that doesn't hurt you at all. And then you still have a free hand to punch body, go over top, hit a head. Like there's just, if you're able to use your head as an extra appendage for control, that's wrestling 101.
Yeah.
But as you said, you need it for MMA. Jiu-jitsu, you can get away with it.
Another huge difference, the guard. You don't actually have to pass the guard in MMA. It's great if you do, but you don't actually have to pass the guard. I mean, a great example of this is George St. Pierre.
Yeah.
How many fights did he just absolutely dominate without even passing the guard?
BJ Penn, when he fought BJ Penn.
Yes.
BJ Penn was the phenom, literally the jiu-jitsu phenom, fastest black belt in American history, I'm pretty sure. And he didn't come anywhere close to the GSP.
Yeah.
Not even close.
Yeah, man. So, I mean, there are tons of strategies for ground and pound from the guard. I'll show you a couple I like, and maybe you can show me some of yours. I mean, this one is super old school, but stay in the center, right? Use your body weight in an arm. Now, start throwing these little rabbit punches there. He's going to get this arm free. He absolutely is. We come back to the center, throw some uppercuts, right? Now, he's going to try to get off center here. In which case, we go 2-on-1 on this arm, drive up here, put some pressure on. He will get this arm out. Right? We come back to the center, throw this. He's going to try to get an angle on you. So again, we can use that. And again, this is a stupid strategy that sometimes works.
Oh, no, this one's fun. This one's nice.
One
Yeah, if people don't know, absolutely do that to them.
Yeah, I mean, there are tons of little tricks like that you can use to just stay in the guard and beat the guy up and aggravate him. And a lot of people, if they come into MMA with this sport jiu-jitsu mindset of, I'm married to the guard, I've got to stay here, I'm going to submit this guy from my guard, they can get really, really frustrated when somebody's doing this stuff to them.
Well, as you were just showing, you were controlling above the hips.
Yeah.
Jiu-jitsu is mainly like you're worried about hip movement, hip rotation.
Yeah.
MMA, I don't care if this goes up or not, you're still getting punched in the face. Like that's it all comes back to that. And I hate to have such a simple thing to keep alluding to because I feel like it's making me seem dumber because this is my sport. But that's the fact of it. It's just if you can get punched where you can't in a different sport, it's going to make it more difficult. It's you were showing the strategies.
Yeah.
You were saying bearing the arm down in jiu-jitsu, the guy's just hanging out here. Like
Yeah.
there's no reason to do this.
Yeah, exactly.
What do I get from that? All I'm doing is giving you my head for maybe like an arm triangle you might sneak in.
Yeah.
A good sweep. If my posture is way up here, your sweeps are so much easier right now.
Exactly.
But if I'm here now, I'm here. As long as my hips are inside, I pin right down here. If I'm going to sit in the guard and punish, control one, small hammer fist, keeping my elbow inside this free elbow of yours.
Yeah, exactly, because you're pinning my shoulders down.
Yeah, no matter what, I can feel this when it goes to elevate. Like when this goes to hit me, go ahead anytime. Like I can actually feel when it's coming up, and I can just block, punch, block, punch, block, punch. Pop out, elbow, switch, and it's always there. As long as my elbow stays inside yours, I had no reason to get past this guard.
Exactly, man. It's like in wrestling, you win when you pin the guy's shoulders to the mat. right? And a lot of the reason for that is because if your shoulders are pinned to the mat, you're losing. You can't move. There's not a lot you can do. And this is true in MMA, this is true in Jiu-Jitsu as well. Not that you win after pinning the guy for 3 seconds, but that if you're pinned to the mat, there's not much you can do. One of the first lessons I had in Jiu-Jitsu, my friend Mark Brewer, he taught me this, and it's such an important lesson. He took me down, put me in guard, and said, all right, now what are you gonna do? I'm like, I don't know. He's like, all right, first lesson. This is a beatdown position. I'm like, but this is what they do in the UFC all the time. He said, no. What they do in the UFC all the time is they free their shoulders so they can do something,
Yep.
right? Whereas when I'm pinned here, go back to the bicep control you had, right? Look, shoulders are pinned. I don't have any submissions or sweeps here, okay? So, half guard, this is another thing. I don't know if you've heard the term Turk. It's a wrestling term. Not everybody uses it, but it's essentially pinning the guy in a half guard-like position. Mm-hmm. And the main difference between a Turk and a half guard is whether or not the shoulders are pinned.
Okay.
See, if let's go to half guard for a second. If my shoulder's not pinned, I'm sitting up.
Yeah.
I've got a bunch of options from here.
Oh, totally, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't feel safe right now. I feel more on edge than you, I imagine.
Yeah, exactly. And you can write hundreds of volumes of pages of stuff you can do from there. But pin those shoulders to the mat. Suddenly, this isn't half guard anymore.
Yeah,
this is a
feels
Turk.
bigger, yeah.
Yeah. So, and obviously, any good jiu-jitsu guy is going to fight to get that shoulder free. But again, a casual fan may not understand the difference. So, yeah, let's pay attention to that. Sweat. Oh man, this is a huge thing. Now, if you're wearing a rash guard, like say this one from my sponsor, Nogi, BJJgear.com, go check them out. Great stuff. Use my code Ramsey10 for 10% off
Ching,
everything.
ching.
And show some love to our friends over at Mexican Martial Arts. But sweat, even if you're wearing a rash guard, it's a totally different dynamic than grappling shirtless. You get in a fight cage, there are all these hot stage lights shining down on you. How long does it take before you get sweaty?
Till they say my name. Before we even touch gloves, I'm sweating.
Yeah.
It's not, there's nothing you can do about it. Your adrenaline is going, your heart's beating faster, you're pumping blood more. Your body temperature rises. Like, just the moment you get in there,
It happens
there's no avoiding it.
instantly.
Yeah.
Instantly. And I remember one of my early MMA fights. I was in guard, the guy's on top, I throw up a triangle choke, and the guy just slips right out like it's trying to throw a triangle on a greased pig. It felt like oil wrestling. I armbarred him, he slipped right out. I was thinking, this isn't fair. This would totally work if he had clothes on.
Yeah.
But no, it's a radically different thing.
Yeah. We actually had, when I was in America still training, back in Evolve in Ohio, we had BJJ class, gi class, then MMA class. And I remember this changed my life. It changed my training forever. Everybody, when we do arm bars, we were taught BJJ, grab the wrist here, turn, whatever, and then extend.
Yeah.
There's close. There's gi. So this, as soon as I grab sweaty arms, it slides right up. So then my MMA coach is like, okay, grab behind the elbows. And just have a lever there. You don't need to control the wrist or whatever. Just have a lever behind the elbow. So then if that's the case, I can kick you over here. I don't need to have any kind of a grip. It's just I need to control this at that point. And that's my arm bar. So then the grip changed.
Yes.
Was a mental change for me in all things jiu-jitsu and grappling related for MMA, because it just opened my eyes. I mean, that little bit of space is the difference between winning a fight and going out and having a great time. Oh, nope, sorry, you're going to the hospital instead. That's your night now. I don't feel like that same consequence is in sport jiu-jitsu. I'm not trying to say it's... Maybe I am trying to say it's not as dangerous, but that factor, it means the world. All these little things are just the difference between going out and having a good night or going to the hospital.
Yeah, one other tiny detail. Hey, stand up for a second. And this is, I made a video about Nogi judo throws, and if you're competing in a rash guard, and the guy's not too sweaty, you can get a front headlock like this.
Yep.
You can lift him up, and you can throw him and stuff like that. And I don't know if you saw where this hand was. This is not going to work as well in MMA. You'll probably slip right out.
Yep.
But one minor difference, if I take this arm and I grab the meat of his armpit
Yep.
right here, instead of like a side headlock here, but grab the meat of the armpit, now it's a much more secure grip.
You can use the position of my feet change.
Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah, and again, minor differences like you're talking about. Let's go back to the guard for a second. Wrist control in the guard, man. This happens all the time in jiu-jitsu. This is fine. Maybe I want to set up a triangle choke like that or whatever. Okay, fine. In MMA, somebody grabs your wrist like this, Kyle, what are you going to do? Okay. Now, I'm controlling his wrist, but I'm not controlling his elbow. I'm not controlling his shoulder. Somebody does this to me, I'm going to tee off on their face with elbows.
Totally.
And, oh, short elbows to the head. Yeah, and you're going to learn very quickly, don't try double wrist control in an MMA fight. You want to control up higher. Collar ties are a great thing. Why? Not just controlling the head and the posture, but,
This stop any strikes.
Exactly.
I have
Look at this in here.
little stuff, but nothing.
Bicep tie-up, that's another good one. From here, I like this position just because it gives me a lot of control without, well, at the same time mitigating strikes. But this, man, you're going to eat some nasty elbows very quickly. The rear naked choke. You might think, what's different about the rear naked choke? I would say it becomes a lot more valuable, a lot more viable in the sport of MMA. Now, it is the most common finish in sport jiu-jitsu, but it's way more common in MMA. And the reason for that, I believe, is because of the friction. Because again, a lot of submissions, it's easier to get out. Like if I'm trying to go plata and you're really slippery, yeah, you're probably gonna get right out of that quickly. But the rear naked choke is like the one where less friction actually makes it easier. So if you get behind me, like you've got a sweatshirt on, so my hand might get caught up in the fabric there. I don't. This arm is gonna slip around the neck. Like maybe I'm hand fighting, whatever, but if there's no friction and I'm all sweaty and slippery, that's gonna slide right through there very, very quickly. Okay. So, again, the rear naked choke becomes significantly more viable.
Well, also in MMA, when some people don't take punches, even little punches as well, they want to turn their back.
Yeah.
I mean, even just here, if you're getting punted, little ones are happening, maybe the guy's against the fence, wherever you are. But this happens a lot just really defensively, and then I can choke his next logical step.
Yes. So it probably sounds like we've been pretty hard on the sport of jiu-jitsu so far.
I love jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, I know.
Most of my wins are from jiu-jitsu, but it's not MMA. It's not.
Exactly. So I did want to talk about a few things that cross over well. So like I said before, the scoring positions of BJJ, I think are actually more important for MMA than they are for jiu-jitsu. For example, if Kyle takes full mount here, okay? He stays here for 3 seconds, it's an IBJJF tournament, he scores 4 points. Great. But what are you gonna do with this position in a jiu-jitsu match? If I just sit here like this and laugh at you, haha, you got your points, what now? Right? Yeah, it's not one of those positions where there are a ton of finishes from in sport jiu-jitsu. There are submissions you can do there, but again, they kind of put you at risk. Like say, for example, what Kyle was saying about arm bars, right? If I'm over here and like, yeah, go ahead and take that arm. I'm like, okay, cool, now I'm out.
Yeah.
All right, but let's go to the context of MMA. He's on top in full mount, right? He's not thinking about arm bars or Ezekiel chokes. He's thinking about club me to death with the elbows so the referee runs in here and saves my life while I'm squirming trying to get out. Now, if you can maintain that position for 3 or 4 seconds and then 3 or 4 seconds of significant strikes.
That's a lot of punches.
Yeah. What is any good referee going to do?
Stop it, help.
Exactly. So, again, those are huge crossover positions. Now, like even back mount. Like a lot of people don't think about back mount for striking. Here, I'll show you one of my favorite strategies. You got to get the guy belly down though. So, half Nelsons, man, those are super useful to help change position. But you got the guy belly down. He's probably going to bring his arms really tight in here, right? And you know, you got these little punches to the side of the ear, but push the back of the head over here, expose the face, and now we can start striking. And the back of the head becomes kind of a lever if we use that forearm right here. And man, this I find is a very valuable striking position in MMA.
From there too, it's I have to either defend strikes
Yes.
and choke, or one of the other happens. Like, this is the best thing I have, but this is not.
Yeah.
I don't go fighting like
The
this. Like,
Dracula hands only go so far.
Yeah, this is desperation.
Yeah. This is gonna buy me a couple of seconds.
Yeah, pretty much.
If I can improve my position in a couple of seconds, great. If not, yeah, not great. Knee mount, man, that's such a big one. Here, if I'm in knee mount here, right? It's a sport jiu-jitsu match. I hold this position for 3 seconds. I get my 2 points, hooray! And how many jiu-jitsu matches have you seen finished from knee mount?
Very few. I mean, maybe arm triangles, maybe an arm bar, but again, the position changes. It's not from that exact spot.
Yeah, it's generally.
Sometimes I've seen arm triangles get locked up, and then the guy will move to knee on belly once he has the arm triangle already.
Yeah, it's generally a transition in the middle of something, right? And whereas in MMA, if I'm able to get here and maintain this for 3 or 4 seconds, landing significant strikes, I win. Right? Or at the very least, I'm well on my way to winning. So again, those positions, hugely important for striking, more so than grappling in many ways. All right. Obviously, there are tons of great habits and techniques from jiu-jitsu that carry over to MMA. Who was it? Roger Gracie that famously said 80% of jiu-jitsu doesn't work in MMA, and everybody got mad at him for that. And but you know, he's right. But what does work? The transitions, those are golden. The control of the space, man, you can't be a great MMA fighter unless you understand that. The idea of position before submission, like if you talk to any student of Pedro Sauer, for example, they will repeat that like a mantra: position before submission. Let's talk about starting from the knees. All right, I hate starting from the knees. It makes me angry when I go to a jiu-jitsu school and all they do is start from the knees. It's one thing if you start from a specific position, but like when people invest time and energy into becoming good at knee grappling, at knee wrestling, instead of like real jiu-jitsu positions that exist in jiu-jitsu tournaments or exist in fights or self-defense or MMA, it's a huge waste of time. Like, I'll show you an example. Here, let's go into a butt scooting position. And yeah, we're doing the whole fist bump. And this is a move I've actually become really good at. Pass a lot of people's guards with that if they start knee wrestling with me, and we're both butt scooting. But would that ever happen in an MMA fight?
Not one I'd want to watch.
Yeah, not one you would want to watch. I made a video a while back talking about how nobody does an MMA fight like this, and then I actually found a real example of a fight where that happened, but that's not a fight I would want to watch. That's a great way to phrase it, man.
I never thought about that, but you're absolutely right.
We do it here.
I can't lie and say we don't, but it's because a lot of people aren't comfortable with the wrestling, which again is kind of testament to what we're talking about today specifically.
Yeah.
There's a reason that people don't want to do that. You get any first timer in a jiu-jitsu class, you start here, they feel safe, everything's good, you know what I mean? Like, you work with the coach. But as competing fighters or somebody who is above a blue belt level, that doesn't do you any favors.
I understand that, and I make a lot of people angry when I say boo to knee wrestling, but at the same time, you don't have to, like, if you're afraid of falling down, if your wrestling sucks, if that's intimidating to you, that's okay. You can still start on the ground, but I would recommend start in a position. Yeah, like a real position.
I prefer to have people starting in like bottom side, or somebody takes your back to start. That you have to go through adversity.
Yes.
As opposed to this, and it's just like you saying skipping the wrestling.
Yeah, this
it's like, hey everybody, thanks. Okay, now I'm gonna choke you. Like, we just leveled up pretty quick there. Right?
Yeah, I know, man. If we're butt scooting and grappling like this, we have to develop this whole game plan around this very artificial scenario.
And I do feel like this breeds a lot more foot locks.
Yeah.
Like the bus moving, I was talking to somebody about this the other day. It's like I feel like every time we start on the ground, it always ends up being a battle of ankle locks. Who's going to get it quicker?
Yeah.
And it's because we're attacking each other foot first. We're not going.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
nobody goes through here and just like fucking dive like that. You don't see that. Or your move, like, you don't. Not many people are hopping over. They're just kind of.
Exactly. What's good?
Yeah. I understand that. It's I see the significance as a gym owner as to why, because some people just don't want to wrestle. But if I had my way,
Yeah.
it would be wrestling more positions every time.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. But yeah, another thing, here's stand-up wrestling. Even if you're a guard puller, right? I'm not saying never pull guard in a sport jiu-jitsu match. That's a perfectly fine strategy, right? Play the rules to your advantage. But if you're a guard puller and you've never had the experience of pulling guard against somebody who's actually fighting back, you're kind of in for a rude awakening. You go into that jiu-jitsu tournament for the first time, all right, I'm gonna win my gold medal. And you're like, I'm gonna pull guard on you. And the guy just slips off and, I didn't have a grip on him. Maybe and then he takes one step back and all of a sudden you're like, oh, well,
I've seen
dang. And then he shoots in and takes you down and gets his 2 points. You need to develop strategies to play where you want to play, even if that's pulling guard. So, my advice to guard players right there.
I've actually seen guys jump guard and knock themselves out by hitting the back of that because
Yes.
the guy doesn't fall down with them right away.
Yes.
It's like they're here and then they try to like sit up and grab a collar or something, but then they lose their grip. And I've seen it twice in my life. If I may jump here.
Sure.
It's like up here, and the guy doesn't fall.
Yeah.
So then if I'm down here and then I try to like reach up and then I lose bam.
Yeah.
I've seen it twice. The guys hit the back of their head and knock themselves out in tournaments, and there's no way they feel good about their jiu-jitsu or their wrestling for like. I wouldn't do another tournament. I would wait a year. I would go back and just train at the gym, 2 people maybe, because I'd be so embarrassed. Like,
Yeah.
weren't you that guy that knocked yourself out pulling guard? Yeah, that was me.
So if you run a jiu-jitsu class where you start from the knee, I would strongly encourage 2 things. Give your students opportunities to start from the feet at least sometimes, and to start from real positions that again force them to work and force them to develop real skills. So I got a couple more things I want to talk about. Oh, grips. Now I'm specifically talking about hand grips.
Okay.
And the MMA gloves, they factor in depending on the type of glove. And I didn't notice this until I had a fight for martial combat. It was a terrible fight, terrible mismatch, but that's not what we're talking about. I was wearing these Fairtex gloves that were really, really stiff, and I couldn't get a gable grip. The tape guy put so much tape on my hands, and I couldn't clasp my hands together in a gable grip, and I was like, man, this is awkward. This is really going to impede like everything. And years later, I read Nogueira's book on the guard for grappling, and he teaches use the S grip. He's got these big fat gloves on in the book, and I'm thinking, why is he using the S grip instead of the gable grip? Why is he using the S grip instead of a ball and soccer? Why is he always using the S grip for stuff? And I realized no matter what type of gloves you wear,
Fingers are so pliable.
yeah, your fingers are still open if it's an MMA glove. So you can always get the S grip. You may not be able to get this if you got big fat gloves. You may not be able to get this or whatever, but you can always get the S grip.
We at the same place I was talking about before in America, we weren't allowed to seize. Everything was monkey after a while.
Yeah.
And it's because like it makes sense. You see it in nature, unless they're like grabbing something and like holding from it, which you don't really do in MMA. I mean, there's pulling, there's arm bars and stuff, but if you want to control something, you want to go in one direction.
Yeah.
Now, the other thing I was taught is if I have a C grip on somebody like this, you escape going with your guard inside. So this means when you escape, you're still protecting your face.
Right.
So if I can do it the opposite way, and you escape my grip, now I'm inside.
Ooh,
you don't
that's
have a block.
interesting.
So it was just a really cool principle. We worked on this for months, and it was no C's and nothing from the outside. Everything in here, monkey inside.
Oh, that is so interesting.
And the grip is completely different. Like I do it all the time. That's one of my biggest advantages I have in jiu-jitsu against anybody is this little stupid habit that I picked up 10 years ago.
Yeah.
But yeah.
That's awesome. Here, do that one more time. Get a extreme close-up.
Inside monkey instead of outside C. This is like always the normal
Get it from
thing.
right here. If I pull this away,
Yep.
yeah, I pull
he's
it
able
toward
to
me. I'm
block,
protecting
and my arm's
myself.
outside now, whereas opposed to this,
If I rip that away, look,
I have inside and I can bring my elbows in.
I've removed my own guard.
Yeah.
That's brilliant, man. That is brilliant. Spider guard. Now, when I say spider guard for MMA, a lot of people give me really weird looks like, spider guard? I've never-
Why?
How do you do spider guard without a gi? Well, spider guard is really just a transition. Now, in sport jiu-jitsu, if you have the gi on, you can hang out in spider guard all day long if you want. In Nogi grappling or MMA, it's a transition. So if it's an MMA fight, I'm on the bottom. My goal is either stand up, sweep, submit, and strike, okay? So from right here, one of my first goals is break his posture, control his strikes. The second one, I've got to open this guard and climb the body. That is spider guard. When I've got my feet on him, under the arms right here, it's not holding under the sleeves and stretching him out like a puppet. I won't stay here forever. I'm very quickly going to transition, for example, to a butterfly guard where I could attempt to sweep and more easily get back up. So again, it happens all the time in MMA. It's a transition as opposed to a static position.
Same with that K guard though. Like
Yes.
I think this year especially, I've seen a lot of people talking about K guard in jiu-jitsu. I think it's a passing moment in an MMA fight.
Yeah, man. Neil Melanson, he popularized the idea of K-guard, which I love. I use it a lot. But again, it's very transitionary. If you're not familiar with what that is, you're right here and you're essentially lifting the guy up. Now, if he's striking you, you can use this to negate some of those strikes. But if I just stay here, he's going to find a way around this frame. Yeah, exactly. He'll hook me right there. Whereas you got to think, make something happen right away. So if he's striking, right, boom, boom, right, I've got this. Maybe I'm thinking,
Now this
move
way,
over toward the
yeah.
bar or something.
Yeah.
Right, make it more dynamic. So the positions become much more dynamic in MMA, whereas in jiu-jitsu you have the luxury of making them static and camping out there a little longer. The guard pull. Okay, now a lot of people in MMA will instantly poo-poo guard pulling, and I'm usually one of them. But I would say there's one situation where pulling guard is advisable, and that's if you are losing if you have lost the takedown battle, you're on your way down to the ground, pull guard, because that's much better than him passing your guard mid-air and landing in side control. Whereas, here, stand up for a second. If this is an MMA fight, and I pull guard on you, boom, what are you thinking right away? Yes, boom. Yeah.
That's absolutely.
So again, it's a viable strategy in the sport of jiu-jitsu, not so much in MMA. So anytime there are differences in the rules, pay very close attention to them, learn those rules, learn how to milk the rules, learn how to exploit the rules, and also understand what rule set your opponent thrives on, what they come from. For example, if you're fighting a guy who is trained specifically in sport jiu-jitsu, right? He spent, that's his bread and butter. Understand the weaknesses of that rule set so you can exploit that, okay? If you're fighting a guy who, his bread and butter is kickboxing, chances are he's probably going to have a much higher guard and it's going to be easier to get under him, for example, right? So understanding the rule set is super important in my opinion.
Absolutely. It's tendencies. Tendencies are a good way to win fights. Instead of having to program yourself to take in information as it's happening, you can kind of predict without giving up any kind of your own plan. Having the wrestler pedigree or anything with that background kind of transitions to all of it. So I think that's really important to have. It's just the control factor. But yeah, it's just trying to guess what that guy's doing in a fight is like the worst thing. That if you're guessing, you're probably losing. So, as my buddy Ramsey said, know their rule set, know their tendencies, make a plan, execute.
Awesome, man. All right, so that's my list of differences about MMA and Jiu-Jitsu. Let me know what you think. What are the differences between MMA and Jiu-Jitsu that you have noticed that we didn't talk about? Mention them in the comments down below. Anything else you'd like to add, Kyle?
Thanks for having me. Sorry if I talk too much. Hopefully I added to it and didn't hurt anything, but always a pleasure. Thank you, man. Thank you.
Likewise. All right, guys, thank you for watching. Now get out there and train.